Good evening, baseball fans, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Bullpen Bulletin here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tonight, we've got a ton of baseball to talk about. We're, of course, going to start with arguably the biggest news of this past week, with Texas softball team closing out the Women's College World Series. We're going to talk about how they did it and just how great of a team they were and how great of a season it was. We'll put a nice little bow on the softball season and wrap it up and send it out of here. We also have a couple of big pieces of news on the pro ranks. The White Sox are getting a new owner. Not right away, but they're going to get a new one. It looks like it looks like it's going to happen, just a little bit more slowly than these things normally going to take. We're going to take a look at that and talk about what's going on there as a whole, as well as the official news on the Corbin Burns injury and what that means for Arizona. We, of course, have our live score update, as it is Tuesday. Everybody's playing. We're going to take a look at our who's hot and who's not from this past week. Not a ton of cold teams, but the ones that are cold are really cold. We're going to take a look at those. We've got our upcoming series to watch, including a duplicate from this past weekend. Way to go, schedule me. I guess, welcome on that one. And, of course, our minor league spotlight and college baseball. We have reached the World Series with almost kind of an island of misfit toys group that's left. We're going to take a look at the matchup for this upcoming week and pick our favorites, as well as, of course, we have our Around the Diamond segment to finish it off. We've got all of that and more coming up on the Bullpen Bulletin here on iSports Radio. All that is sports. This is Alden K and Mike Patt. We're going to hear a quick word about our sponsors and get right to it.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, eSports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And welcome back to the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Once again, you've got Alden K and Mike Patt here with you tonight, and we are going to be bringing you a jam-packed episode full of baseball goodies. We do have Taryn Rodriguez in the chat. Good evening, sir, to you as well. Thank you for the well wishes, of course. And if you are a big fan of the show, obviously follow the network on all social media platforms and also check out the website, iesportsradio.com. And if you're a fan of the show, please follow us on all social media. You can follow the show at BP Bulletin _ISR, and you can follow Alden at the AZTRL, talking all things Arizona sports over there. You can follow yours truly at IESR _DMV, talking all things DMV sports. And you can follow Ricky, normal third person who is not here tonight, but you can follow him at Rickinator555. He's talking all things New York sports. So without further ado, let's get right to it, and let's get to it with arguably the biggest news of this past week, and that was Texas winning the College Softball World Series. They beat Texas Tech 2-1 to win their first ever softball championship. They took the first game in dramatic fashion. They were actually losing the majority of this game before scoring 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th to snatch a victory away 2-1. By the way, fun fact, that was Texas Tech's first loss of the entire tournament, was that first game of the World Series. So that just shows how great of a run the Red Raiders were on. And then the Texas Tech would come back and snatch game 2, 4-3, another really tight one. And then game 3 wasn't really that close of a contest. Texas got 5 runs in the first inning and did not look back, on their way to a 10-4 victory and a title clinching match. So Alden, take it away. How good was this Texas team? How great was this victory? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this was a pretty good series. I did say last week I was going to go with Texas Tech because, the past games didn't really lie. They hadn't lost a game. But Texas was a really good team, not just in this tournament, but all season long. Coming in as the 6th seed, being able to get through teams like Tennessee and Oklahoma and all these other teams, this and that. So, but this was a really good series, though. A lot of it was pretty much a pitching battle a little bit until obviously the last game where Texas came out on all cylinders and won by 6 runs. But yeah, the first and second game, pretty close games, came down to the wire. Texas Tech, they did what they could have done in game 2, but then in game 3, it was just all Texas in that game, and they were the better team. They definitely showed it, and even though I did pick Texas Tech, I did also say that I wasn't going to be shocked if Texas won. But overall, I still kind of surprised that either team made it to the finals. But yeah, Texas was just the better team, and I think they deserved it. They had a really good season overall. And it's kind of weird not seeing Oklahoma do it for once. So, but Texas now on top. We'll see if they can run it back next time.
You're right. It is weird not seeing the Sooners come out on top there. I picked Texas at the beginning of the World Series, so not to say that I'm a prophet, because we've seen how some of my pro picks are going here. But No, I mean, Texas, like you said, they were a great team all year. I think we even said coming into the tournament, them getting the 6th seed was a little bit of a shaft. I think they had some struggles right there at the end that maybe dropped them down a few rankings. Realistically, all year long, they were one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the nation. So great overall performance. Great performance by Mia Scott. For Texas, had 2 home runs in the series, including, I believe, a grand slam that really broke things open in the 3rd game. But I also want to shout out one of the best pitchers, not only in this series, but in the country, in Najari Kennedy, who started all 3 games for Texas Tech, a truly Herculean effort, pitched complete games in the first 2, almost got the victories in the first 2, was very close to pulling out that game 1 victory, but then just had those couple runs right there at the end. Unfortunately, it looked like her arm did start to get a little bit tired there in the 3rd game when she got 5 runs allowed in that first inning. But shout out to her for really trying to put the team on her back and carry them through. But great performance by Texas, great all around, and congratulations, a well-deserved, well-earned title for them. Now moving on to our next big headline, and it's news. It's something that's gonna happen. White Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf announced this past week plans to sell the majority control of the team to minority owner Justin Ish. And correct me if the pronunciation Ishbia. Am I getting that right? Is it Ishbia? Is the pronunciation?
Yep.
I asked Alden because Alden is familiar with this particular family. He'll probably get to that in a second here, but he's in a they're in an agreement to sell the team, but not by 2029. It appears that the plan is that they are slowly going to integrate Ishbia into the ownership role with him making capital infusions yearly. And then by 2029, Reinsdorf will have the option to sell his controlling interest. But if he doesn't do it, then by 2034, Ishbia will have the option to just outright buy it. Kind of a convoluted way to say you're selling the team. Most owners just, you know, sell the team. But I guess they decided to do it a little bit differently here. I thought the weirdest one was when the Orioles sold to the Rubenstein Group a couple years ago. They it was set up for the sale to not go through until Peter Angelos had passed away, and John Angelos was going to sell his majority stake. I thought that was odd, and then this came out, and then okay, this is the new odd marker. But Alden, what are your thoughts on this whole setup, agreement, deal, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, it's a little weird, the offer that Ishbia got for it, but he's a limited partner for this year and next year, and then I forgot what it read for 27 and 28, but by 29 or 23rd, whenever Jerry Reinsdorf could sell his controlling interest, but it's pretty much a guarantee by 2034 that Justin Ishbia will be the new owner of the White Sox. I kind of thought that this move was inevitable a long time ago because I know this is a baseball show, but I remember when his brother Matt Ishbia bought the Suns. He did make a statement saying his brother was looking to buy a team in Chicago, not specifically White Sox, but any team in Chicago, and they wanted to expand their businesses near their home state of Michigan. So he at the end of the day, he's going to be the future owner of the White Sox, and um, this is good news for the White Sox and their fans. I know a lot of them probably don't know much about the Ishbia family, but as a Phoenix Suns fan, who that team is owned by an Ishbia member, because while keeping it on the topic of ownership, I guess, because I remember and I started loving uh, basically Arizona sports through guys like Steve Nash, Marty Stoudemire, and of course those old teams. And the ownership then was terrible. And then Ishbia comes in a couple years ago and he nearly quadruples the value. We're one of the higher grossing teams in the NBA now. So back to baseball though. That's what his brother is going to do for the White Sox. He's going to spend money to try to improve the team, whether it works or not, because if anyone knows basketball, they know what the Suns are in right now. But Whether it works or not, he is going to spend money for the White Sox. He is going to try to improve the revenue, and he is going to make the White Sox a richer team in baseball. And I really like it because of the way money works in baseball. There's no salary cap; it's payroll. So I could see Justin Ishbia being kind of like a Steve Cohen type of owner, because the Ishbia family, they have a lot of money. They're a rich family. It's nothing. Money is not an issue for them at all when it comes to spending on this kind of business. So when it comes to the payroll breakdown for baseball, I could see the White Sox really improving within. And I know we may have to wait almost 10 years for him to become the controlling owner of the team. But this is what White Sox fans wanted. They wanted Reinsdorf to sell the team, not just for the White Sox, but I'm sure Chicago fans who like the Bulls as well. They can't stand Reinsdorf anymore. So this is a breath of fresh air for the White Sox and their fans. And it was estimated that uh, for the net worth of 4.3 billion, the White Sox could get bought for around half of that at 2 billion. So we'll see a little bit more as the details come out a little bit later. But this is really good for the White Sox and their fans. I know they may have to wait almost a decade for him to become the controlling owner, but at some point, we don't know yet. It could be less than that, but at some point they will have new ownership, and they really could become a better team and really uh, improve their value as far as revenue goes in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Another component in this deal, Reinsdorf is 89. That has to factor into this at least somewhat, and doing that math, by the time you get to 2029, he's going to be 93. So I would be very surprised if they made this arrangement, and he didn't exercise that option sometime in the early. I mean, maybe unless his health continues to be sterling, that's his goal, to continue holding on to the team as long as possible. He has owned the team since 1981. So, there is that component to it. But yeah, I mean, this was a need for the White Sox. This franchise was, and it's very weird because it was not long ago, Alden, as you recall, that this team had hope. They were a competitive baseball team, not just but a few years ago. Then the
Yeah.
bottom just completely fell out of it. All of their promising players went in the toilet or left, got traded, whatever, and then the team just completely stunk. And now, last year obviously they had that record-breaking performance in the wrong direction, and this year really not massively better. As they currently stand, let's see what their current record is: 22-44. So they've won a third of their games so far, which amazingly, if they continue that pace, would still be a 13-game improvement over
Yeah.
last season.
At least you're not the Rockies.
Now I guess we talked about this last week. Now the news is official because he was not placed. He did not have surgery right away. He was just placed on the 15-day injured list with what was described as elbow inflammation. But it is now official. Corbin Burns has been ruled out for the rest of the season. He will have Tommy John surgery, which means not only will he be out for the rest of this season, his status for the beginning of next year will be severely in doubt. As this typically, as we've seen, is about a 12-month recovery process, potentially a little bit longer. So, Alden, obviously, this is right in your wheelhouse, being our resident Arizona fan. So, what does this mean for Arizona? I mean, I'm just going to flat out ask you the question, and I think I'm going to know the answer. Is this the end of Arizona season?
I don't know, honestly. I have the answers to something like that, but I actually don't know because they're definitely going to be involved in the trade deadline. That's something that Mike Hazen always does. And they're not going to be sellers. I know people are saying that the Diamondbacks are going to be sellers. They're going to sell the pieces. They're going to tank. They're going to try to restart. That's not going to happen. This team was in the World Series a couple of years ago. They're not going to try to give up now. So the only piece I can really see them selling at the deadline, if it's even a selling option anymore because he sucks this year, is Zach Gallen, because his ERA is above 5 and he's not the pitcher that we used to watch him as. But Yeah, someone pick up the phone for me because I did call it. This injury was not inflammation. I said this last week. No professional pitcher goes on the mound, throws a pitch, and literally mid reaction as he's throwing the ball, yells in pain and says his elbow is done. That's not inflammation. That is going to be a Tommy John surgery, and that is exactly what I knew was going to happen as soon as I saw that game and I saw him get pulled out of the game. And now we have to wait until probably the very end of next season to see him on the mound again. And this just adds on to the ongoing list of Diamondback pitchers that come to this team and they either get injured or their career goes downhill, this and that. Like, if you look at the history of the Diamondbacks, the only time they really spent money on a pitcher and he actually turned out to be a Diamondback Hall of Famer was Randy Johnson. Like, other than that, when the Diamondbacks spend big time money on pitchers, it normally goes to the very bottom. You know, we saw it with Madison Bumgarner and Zach Greinke, Jordan Montgomery, and Corbin Burns. Unless he has a good comeback, he does have 6 years on his contract, and because of this Tommy John surgery, I think that he is going to opt into those next 4 years, those 4 years after, because it's a 2-year option. It's a player option after the second year to opt into the last 4 years. So I do think after this injury, Corbin Burns is going to be on the team for the last 4 years of his contract because, you know, obviously his value is going to go down a little bit after this injury. So he most likely will opt into his deal to make the extra money and have a chance at a comeback with the Diamondbacks. But yeah, I don't necessarily want to say this is the end of the season yet because this Diamondbacks team last season, they were in the same situation without Corbin Burns. Obviously, it's his first year in Arizona, but last season when they didn't have him, pitching was a big issue. They got involved at the trade deadline, and then they barely missed the playoffs because they went on an amazing win streak. If there were games where they didn't make that one mistake, they would have been back in the postseason last year. So I think that's the route that the Diamondbacks are in right now. I don't really necessarily think it's the end quite yet. They're only 2 games below 500. They're still a couple games out of the wild card, so it's not like the season's completely over yet. I know the National League is a very tough conference. It's really hard to get by in that conference, especially this season. But I think that what Mike Hazen's going to do is see how it all plays out, and I may have an answer to that question by after the All-Star break, probably. But right now, I don't necessarily want to hit the panic button yet. But yeah, like Terrence said, yeah, it's always not just the D-backs fans, but Arizona sports fans. But yeah, unfortunate injury, and it really sucks because he was bouncing back after a kind of a slow start this season. He was pitching pretty good, but yeah, it just sucks it had to end like this for this season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, looking at the Diamondbacks, looking at their setup, they're not that far out. They're only 2 games below 500, which is not, a rough place to be at this stage. And they're only looking at it quickly here, 5.5 games out of the third wild card spot, which is not an insurmountable gap either. So I don't think it's necessarily a season ending, like a doom thing for the Diamondbacks. Now, what I will say is it would be interesting to see if they maybe use this opportunity to give, maybe some younger guys some shots. I don't know where they stand in terms of prospects, if there's anybody majorly promising coming up the ranks in AAA or anything like that. They
Yeah.
do have a handful of guys who are on expiring contracts, veterans who probably don't factor into the long-term plan. Zach Gallen is going to be an interesting topic of conversation. A once very promising pitcher who's having a rough season. I don't know if that's let's move on from him or let's see if he can work it out. Merrill Kelly, I think, could be an interesting piece for them to. He's 36. He's a vet, a very affordable deal. I could see a playoff team eyeing him as a back end rotation, guy to kind of solidify that part. So that's a guy who they could get some pieces for. Shelby Miller as well, another vet on an expiring contract, and a really interesting one that I think you would at least pick up the phone and answer some calls on would be Eugenio Suarez as well, being a veteran entering the last year of his deal. These are the guys that you look at as, okay, you're not throwing in the towel necessarily, but you've got these guys on expiring contracts. They might not be back next year. If a team makes a good enough offer, you at least got to listen. And I think that would probably be my description of Arizona's position right now, is they're listening. They're kind of in the, we're kind of in the middle. Burns being out sucks. Somebody just called and offered us one of their top 10 prospects for Eugenio Suarez. Okay, well maybe we'll take a look at that or something like that. That I think that would be my best description of where Arizona is right now. Now we are on to our live score update. Of course, it is Tuesday, so we've got every team is playing tonight, and we do have some final results already. We've got the Red Sox took down the Rays tonight, 3-1, big divisional victory for them there. The Marlins took down the Pittsburgh Pirates 3-2 in the ongoing race for the second worst team in the National League between those two. Cincinnati upset cross-state rival Cleveland 1-0. Great pitching duel there. Looks like Abbott with a complete game shutout for the Reds. You don't see many complete games anymore, so good on him for that. You also have the Tigers took down the Orioles 5-3. Really close matchup there. Really good game. Current games, we've got the Cubs leading the Phillies 8-4. That one is in the bottom of the ninth. So Chicago looking to wrap that up. The Mets have come back to tie the Nationals 4-4. This game was 4-2. We were talking about it before we went live. So the Nationals bullpen doing their thing as per usual. So that game is now entering the bottom of the ninth. Milwaukee is beating Atlanta 3-1. That one in the bottom of the seventh, and Milwaukee's got bases loaded, no outs. The Yankees are crushing the Royals, for lack of a better word, 10-2. That one not really close in the bottom of the sixth. Texas is beating Minnesota 10-4 in the top of the seventh. You've got Toronto ahead of St. Louis 8-4. That one in the top of the eighth. The White Sox in a rare lead over the Houston Astros 4-1. That one entering the top of the sixth. Colorado and San Francisco are tied 1-1. Colorado, maybe with their 13th win of the season. Maybe. We'll see. You never know. That one in the top of the fourth. And just getting underway, a trio of games. We have the Athletics visiting the LA Angels. That one is entering the bottom of the first. And then the Dodgers and Padres are just getting started. And the Diamondbacks and Mariners are just getting started. So those are your live games tonight. And now we are on to our Who's Hot, Who's Not segment, where we take a look at this past week and we look at who has been hot and who has been not in the world of professional baseball. So Alden, take it away. Who is your hots? Who are your hots and who are your nots?
Yeah, so I think for my hot team, I'm going to go with the Blue Jays. They've won 8 of their last 10 games, and they have beaten teams that were actually on some type of streak in these recent days. Obviously, they did win a 4-game series against the Minnesota Twins. They took 3 out of 4, and the Twins, who after a slow start had their own winning streak, and then they were able to bounce back into the American League run. So they were able to take 3 out of 4 against them. They beat St. Louis yesterday, and the Cardinals, who have been winning a lot of games of their own. And currently, right now, they lead the Cardinals 8-4 in the 8th inning. So the Blue Jays are looking at winning another game here. And they also beat the Phillies quite a bit too, which I'll talk about the Phillies here shortly. But they did beat the Phillies in a 3-game series. So they haven't lost a series since, I believe, they played Tampa Bay back at the very end of May when they got swept by the Rays. So that is the last time they lost a series. So the Blue Jays, 6 games above 500. They do have a little bit of a test coming up for these next 2 series. They got the Phillies again, and then they have the Diamondbacks, who are going over to Toronto after that. And then obviously the White Sox, they get a break there, and then Guardians, and then the Red Sox. So the Blue Jays winning 8 of their last 10, I think that and they're second place in their division at this point. I believe at the beginning of the year I picked them to finish fourth place in the division, but there are a couple teams in the AL East that did not live up to my expectations at all this season. So definitely a good season of improvement so far by the Blue Jays, and we'll see if they can keep it up. For my cold team, it's going to be the Phillies. I believe Bryce Harper got injured again shortly after he came back. So, and we talked about him last week coming back, him hitting a home run, and now he's injured again. So it's like the Phillies, they cannot get out of their own way right now. They did win yesterday against the Cubs, but today they got demolished. It's the bottom of the ninth, and they're down 4 runs right now. So unless a miracle happens, it looks like they'll be losing tonight's game, but we'll see if they can win the series. If they can win the series tomorrow against the Cubs. They got swept by the Pirates, though. And the Pirates, who have been in a little bit of a rabbit hole of their own, they swept the Phillies, and Paul Skeens dominated the Phillies in the last game, pitching almost 8 innings and not giving up a single run. So unfortunately, the Paul Skeens game was that. But in the other 2 games, they only scored 1 run in one of them, and then in the next game they scored 4 runs, but their pitching wasn't able to stop the Pirates, which the Pirates offense has normally been their issue this season, but they were able to get the best of the Phillies. But the Phillies, they got the Blue Jays after the Cubs, and then they got the Marlins, they've always been kind of sneaky with contenders this season, and then they got the Mets and then the Astros. So the Phillies, they're 2 of their last 10 so far, and not really showing some good signs. They keep dealing with injuries. Like I said at the beginning of the year, I don't think Rob Thompson is the manager that can bring this Phillies team a World Series. I don't think he's the manager to do it. So unless the Phillies can bounce back right here, it might be hot seat time for Rob Thompson unless they do something good, kind of like they do at the trade deadline every year, and then they win games of their own. But we'll see if they can turn it around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in Philadelphia, but they are not playing great baseball right now. For my hot team, I was looking at a couple different options. I'm going to go with a team that has really been running hot and cold for most of the season, it feels like, and that's the Cincinnati Reds. After they lost 4 of 5 entering basically this past week, and then they proceeded to get one game against the Brewers, and then they swept the Diamondbacks. Sorry, Alden. And then they've taken the first 2 here against Cleveland. So winners of 6 of their past 7 after losing 4 of 5. Team that's really running hot and cold, up and down right now. But right now they're hot and they're winning games. So you got to give credit where credit is due there. I was going to say the Mets until I realized 6 of their 8 victories in their last 10 games were against the Rockies. So I'm going to put a little asterisk next to that one and not give them too much credit. And for my cold team, I'm going to go with the Mariners. This was a team that, we had. They were leading the division. They've been leading the division for a good portion of the season, and then they've lost 6 of their past 7. They lost to the Diamondbacks yesterday. Of course, their game just getting underway today. They got swept by the Orioles, which is just completely unacceptable. No team should get swept by the Orioles this year. And then lost 2 of 3 against the Angels, which you never want to lose against a divisional opponent. But one of the biggest losses, part of this, is that the Houston Astros have made up 3 games. In the past 10, the Astros are 6-4 in past 10. The Mariners are 3-7. And would you look at that? The Mariners are 3 games behind the Astros now. So that is not, you do not want to be giving ground. You do not want to be losing to divisional opponents. Oh, by the way, those Angels that took 2 of 3 of them, they are now only 2 games ahead of those Angels. So not a great spot for the Mariners right now. Not a place they want to be for sure. Now, before we take our commercial break here, we've got our series, of course, coming up this weekend, and there are actually some pretty good ones I saw on the schedule. But Alden, we'll kick it over to you, sir. What series are you looking forward to this upcoming weekend?
So I talked about Yankees Red Sox last week, and apparently they're playing against each other this upcoming weekend again. So yeah, like you said before we went live, whoever made the schedule there kind of did them dirty. But hey, anyway, I mean, the Red Sox and Yankees, I always like watching that series. And Roman Anthony did just get called up and looked a little bit shaky, but we'll see how he adjusts with the Red Sox. He did get his first major league hit today. It was a 2 RBI single, so we'll see, or double. So we'll see if he can keep that going and really stand out for the Red Sox this year. But I'll stay local here for Padres and Diamondbacks. These are two teams who are trying to catch up to the Dodgers. I know it's never going to happen because, you know, the Dodgers, the regular season team they are, they always win that division. But that's why I normally talk about the NL West a lot more, is who's going to get second place. It's normally between Padres, Diamondbacks. I know the Giants are third right now, but I still don't really know how to feel about the Giants so far this season. But these are two teams who clashed at it at the end of last season. Came down to the tiebreaker, and the Padres ended up getting second place over the Diamondbacks, and they went on to the playoffs. So Diamondbacks are coming out for revenge in this series. You know, these are two teams that are really going to have to probably go on another win streak after the All-Star break again. So we'll see if they can get something going here. But they're supposed to have Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and then Brandon Pfaadt for this series as well. So we'll see how that works. And then I do kind of like the Reds and Tigers a little bit. The Reds have been a hot team, like you brought up just now. And then the Tigers, still first place in their division, still one of the best teams in the American League. I think that that's going to be a pretty good series for the Reds and Tigers. That series is in Detroit. The Reds kind of had a slow start to this season after I thought they would have at least a little bit of an improvement, but they are 2 games above 500 now. They're on a 5-game win streak, I believe. 5 games in a row now. So this upcoming weekend, we'll see if they can increase that win streak against the Tigers. But those are 2 series that I think are interesting to watch.
Absolutely. Those are going to be 2 good ones for sure. I'm looking at Toronto and Philadelphia, 2 teams that actually you just talked about somehow managed to be facing off. Toronto, a team that is certainly headed in the right direction now, winners of 8 of their past 10, and then Philadelphia, losers of 8 of their past 10. So these are 2 teams headed in opposite directions, and sometimes that can lead to some of the most interesting series over a 3-game set. So I'm curious to see how that one goes. Also looking, as you mentioned, Giants and Dodgers. I think that's going to be a really good series. I really like the Friday matchup, Logan Webb versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I think that's a really great pitching matchup and great to have as your Friday night game. Also, I'm very happy that they did not de facto put the Red Sox Yankees as Sunday night baseball. That seems to be they're going MO, but it will be Giants Dodgers will be your Sunday night baseball game as it is currently scheduled. And there was another matchup I saw that had me. Oh yeah, Minnesota and Houston. These are 2 teams that they're playing good baseball right now. Obviously, I just talked about the Astros leading the American League West, and then Minnesota is a team. They're actually second in the Central now. They have actually surpassed the Guardians and the Royals. So these are 2 teams, 2 of the top 5 teams record-wise in the American League, and 2 teams that are at least outdoing my expectations. I didn't think either of them would be serious playoff contenders this year, with the Astros with all of their off-season losses, and with the Twins just having a roster that just kind of made all of us just kind of go like this entering the season. But 2 teams playing really good baseball, and I think that is a great series to watch. There's no sarcastic Orioles playing another really crappy team pick this week, but the Nationals are playing the Marlins. So if you want to talk about a battle for the bottom spot in the National League East, that's also a series to watch. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into the minor leagues, and also, of course, we've got the college baseball World Series to talk about with some really interesting matchups there. Do not go away. You're listening to the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We are now going to head down to the minor leagues for our minor league baseball spotlight. So, Alden, we're going to kick it over to you. Who is your minor league spotlight for the week?
I'm going to go over to Cleveland's organization and talk a little bit about the number 12th ranked prospect so far. I know he's in Double-A right now, but if he keeps playing the way he's playing, and he is 22 years old, so he could make his debut by probably the end of this regular season. But Travis Bazzana for the Guardians, the second baseman. So this was I feel like this is a prospect that Cleveland could really use right now. I know he's still getting developed over in Double-A right now, but when I look at Cleveland, I just don't really see a solidified second baseman that they really have right now. If Jen B is watching, I'm sure she can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But from what I'm seeing with the Guardians, they could really use Bazzana right now. I know his batting average in Double-A right now isn't the best. It's 252. But his on base percentage over 350, so he can get on base whether it's a walk. He doesn't really have that high of a strikeout rate or anything like that. But 4 home runs in 33 games. So I feel like Cleveland, with the offensive struggles that I feel like we've seen them on a little bit lately, this is a guy who's ranked 12th so far. I know he's still got to go through AAA and everything like that, but I wanted to bring him up specifically because he's a guy who, when he gets on base, he can steal the bases too. He's stolen 8 bases on 9 attempts, and he's rarely caught stealing too. And when you have a guy who can lead off or be near the leadoff spot, get on base early, steal some bases, and then you leave the 4, 5, 6 hitters to score in the runs from second or third base. I think he would be a good combination for Cleveland. Just with the season that they've had so far, they've been kind of a bend but not break type of Guardians team. So I think Travis Bazzana is a guy that they could really use right now. Still getting developed, but he could, not guaranteed, but he could make his debut towards the end of, or beginning of September when they start doing the call-ups. So I think Travis Bazzana is a prospect that I wanted to point out and a guy that Cleveland could really use right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I took it when they traded Andres Jimenez before the season. That kind of felt like a precursor move. Like we think Travis Bazzana will be up this year at some point, and we want him in that second base spot. That was my first thought when they traded Jimenez. But I agree. I mean, Bazzana, fantastic prospect. He had the best bat in that draft class when Cleveland took him. And I hope he can come up and provide that boost for the team. Me, I am going to go. I'm going to keep it local. I'm going to keep it with the homer pick, but I'm going to go with a guy that maybe not a lot of people know about outside of the Orioles organization, but a guy who could be an interesting piece moving forward, and that's outfielder Dylan Beavers. Currently at AAA Norfolk, he was the 33rd overall pick in the 2022 draft out of college. 6'5", 210, so he's a big kid, well built. So far this year in AAA, batting .322 with a .412 on base percentage and an .892 OPS, a strikeout rate less than 25%. All the numbers that you want to see at the plate. He doesn't have absurd power. He's only hit 31 home runs in 316 minor league games, so he doesn't have that type of profile, but he does a lot of things well. He hits well. He gets on base. He has a career .376 on base percentage in the minors. He plays good defense. He can play all three outfield positions. This is a kid where, you look at the Orioles right now, you look at how the team is performing, you got to think that there's going to be some transition in the near future, maybe some vets getting moved out, some roster spots being opened up. And if that happens in the outfield, like let's say the team were to move Cedric Mullins at the trade deadline, let's say they were to move Ramon Laureano, let's say they were to move Ryan O'Hearn and open up a couple of these spots, I think Beavers is definitely a guy who has earned a shot at that roster and for playing time in the second half of the season when you see these types of moves go. In fact, they just sent Heston Kjerstad back down to AAA with Mullins being activated from the injured list. I could almost make the argument that I would rather see Beavers get his first shot versus Kjerstad get what would be now his fourth shot before the end of the season. So I think that's a fair argument to make there. Now we are going to go to college baseball. The super regionals were this past weekend. Some great baseball, some great series, some upsets even. And now we officially have our College World Series set. In bracket 1, we have 8 seed overall Oregon State, who made it by taking 2 of 3 from the Florida State Seminoles, which broke my heart. But it is what it is. And Florida State should have won that first game. That's all I'm going to say. Anyways, moving on. And then also joined by 13 seed overall Coastal Carolina, who swept Auburn and now has a 23 game winning streak going back to the regular season. And then we have Arizona, who upset 5th seed UNC in the Super Regionals after UNC beat them 18-2. I think it was in the first game. Arizona managed to take 2 games, 2 and 3, and make it on. And then Louisville, who beat Miami in their regional. It was a very good regional. That one went 3 games. So it's that quartet in bracket 1. And then bracket 2's got 3 seed Arkansas, who just seems to have yet been to be challenged at all in this tournament. You've got 6-seeded LSU, who also cleared through their bracket and cleared through West Virginia. Those are the top 2 seeds remaining in the tournament, are those 2. You also have 15-seed UCLA, who took care of Cinderella's story, University of Texas San Antonio. And you have Murray State, who pulled off the massive upset over Duke after, of course, pulling off the upset over Ole Miss in the regionals. They pulled out a come-from-behind series victory against Duke to take the final spot. So those are your brackets. Alden, take it away, sir. What stands out here? What matchups are you looking for? And go ahead and just give us a prediction. Who do you think's going to win it?
All right. So first off, shout out to UCLA. It's their first time going to Omaha in, I believe, 13 years. So
Wow.
yeah, so or no, since 2013, so about 12 years or so. So yeah, UCLA as a 15 seed, they got back there. Still surprised that U of A won after getting demolished 18-2. And as an ASU fan, it still hurts. I gotta talk about the Wildcats in a good way. But yeah, so as far as these games go, I'm just gonna say it right away. I think LSU is gonna win it all. That's who I think is gonna win it all. They are taking on the third seed Arkansas, so we'll see if Arkansas could live up to the third seed name and beat LSU. But some of these games are pretty good. I could see Arizona going on, and this isn't the homer in me, but I can see them going on a little bit of a surprising run. I mean, a lot of people did not think that they would get that far against North Carolina, but that was a complete upset. So with that being said, never count out U of A because they destroyed North Carolina after that first game. After that first game, everyone thought they were out, they were done. It was 18-2. Then they win the next two and dominate their way to Omaha. But as far as predictions go, I do see LSU winning it all, but it's going to be a very close and very competitive bracket. Um, as far as the first bracket goes, we got Coastal Carolina taking on U of A in a few days, and then we got Oregon State taking on Louisville. I got Oregon State winning that one. Then we got UCLA against Murray State. If UCLA can keep it going, I think that they can also make a pretty good run for their money as well. And then the third seed Arkansas versus the sixth seed LSU, which I think is the biggest, the most important game to watch. I think whoever wins out of those two is going to win the whole thing. So, but I'm just going to make my prediction right now, and then can laugh at probably since I do like cursing a lot of teams for whatever reason. LSU will probably lose now, so we'll see if that actually happens. But yeah, I'm going to go with LSU for the whole finals. But there's a lot of teams in here that you don't know what they can do in this tournament. They can really upset a lot of other teams, and it's going to be a lot of offensive battles here for this tournament as well. We saw a lot of runs scored in the previous brackets, so this is definitely going to be quite the interesting College World Series that we see right here. But literally, any of these teams can really get there. Just depends on what team they run into at the right or wrong time. But definitely, I'll obviously because it's local, I'll probably be paying attention most to Arizona and then Coastal, which will be on in a few days. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great matchups, great brackets. I really like this bracket one. I don't know why. Maybe it's the combination of the mascots. It's just all very silly to me. But that one just feels like an island of misfit toys. Like two of these teams, nobody really thought was going to be there. A third team, maybe people thought was overrated, probably in Coastal Carolina, given that they didn't play great competition. Oregon State, their offense is potent. The Seminoles saw that one firsthand. This team can score runs in the bunches. Bracket two, obviously, you've got the two SEC teams. They're going to duke it out. And I think it's probably one of those two is going to be the one to move on in the tournament overall. But there are some really interesting matchups. And yeah, I'm just curious to see if any of these Cinderella teams, the Murray State, Arizona, Louisville, heck, you could even argue UCLA is the 15th seed overall, probably definitely an underdog, especially in that second bracket. If any of those teams can continue their rhythm, but like you said, Alden, any of these teams can win this. So I'm gonna go with the team that I think it would just be a phenomenal story if they were to continue on the streak that they've been on and keep proving people wrong and proving doubters wrong. Screw it. I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina. I'm just going to go with them to continue their role, continue winning games. I do think they eventually do lose one. I don't think they sweep their way through the rest of it. But, I mean, you cannot ignore 23 wins in a row. And you can't ignore sweeping a regional that included Florida and Eastern Carolina and sweeping Auburn. My goodness. I mean, I get, winning the 18 or so games in a row against elite competition, but that was great competition that they faced in their regional and super regional, and they still swept through. So I'm gonna say screw it, and I'm gonna go with Coastal Carolina, and let's see if I can't go 2 for 2 on college baseball, softball predictions. So now we have made it to our Around the Diamond segment, a segment where we just talk about whatever is on our mind. So Alden, take it away. What is your Around the Diamond topic this week?
Yeah, so there's not really a lot, but I think that it's kind of hilarious how Craig Kimbrell played one game in a reunion with the Braves, and then they got rid of him, and now he is on the Texas Rangers. So we'll see if Craig Kimbrell, and it's a minor league deal as well, so we'll see if he can get some type of bounce back a little bit. But I did talk about this a little bit earlier, but Roman Anthony recorded his first MLB hit as a 2-run double, which actually helped the Red Sox get past the Rays today and win the game. Roman Anthony was a guy who I've talked about on a previous episode here on the show, and he's a guy that Boston could really use right now because, I did say that Boston was going to get second place in their division, and yeah, so far it's literally quite the opposite of what I predicted. Other than the Yankees being in first place, that's the only thing I've gotten right so far in that division. If I remember, I said Yankees, and then I believe Red Sox, Orioles, Blue Jays, and then the Rays. So that whole division is kind of chaos right now for the wrong reasons. But overall, the Roman Anthony call-up I thought was pretty interesting. He's looking kind of shaky, but he'll get used to it in the future. But I wanted to point that out for my Around the Diamond.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do apologize on behalf of the Orioles for completely messing up your prediction. I know they are not one of the teams helping the cause right now. So for my Around the Diamond, I'm going to give a shout out to, we're going to stick with my alma mater, Florida State. I know they got eliminated in 3 games. Really should have won that first game, but the bullpen could not hold it together against Oregon State. But I'm going to shout out to Jamie Arnold, the pitcher who was the headliner for the season for the team, pitched a great year all season long, was a strikeout machine, and then came into the College World Series and pitched, I believe he pitched 2 very good games in the College World Series, one in the regional, and the lone victory for the Seminoles in the Super Regional was the game that Jamie Arnold pitched. Threw well over 100 pitches in both games, was a true workhorse. I'm assuming this is it. He is projected to be a first-round pick in the upcoming MLB draft. Not entirely sure where he's going to go. Some people have suggested he might go top 5. I don't know. That feels a bit rich. I would not put him in the same category as like a Paul Skeens in terms of pitching prospect. But do I think he could go top 10? I think that's fair. Top half easily. I would love it if he slid to 19 and the Orioles got to take him. But yes, Jamie Arnold, I tip my cap to you. Excellent career for the Seminoles. Finishes his career 8th on the all-time strikeout list. Even if they had gotten to the College World Series, I don't think he would have gotten more than maybe a couple spots higher than that on the list. Interesting fact, by the way, of the Florida State Seminoles all-time strikeout leaders, of the top 4, 3 of them were on the same team back in 1985. That team finished second in the College World Series to the University of Arizona, Alden. So there you go. There's your fun fact of the day for college baseball. A couple of fun facts mixed in there for you guys to wrap it up. Yeah, that team went like 62-18, and they won their 18 of their last 20 games, and their 2 losses were to the University of Arizona in the College World Series. That will do it for tonight's show. Great one. You had Alden K and Mike Patt talking all different kinds of baseball. We, of course, went through Texas. Once again, congratulations to the Texas softball team for winning the Softball College World Series. Truly excellent performance there. Shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Beef Brisket Jerky. Jerky that's on a whole other planet. Go to planetjerky.net to to get yours today. Also, Seal the Deal Wax Deals, custom wax stamps, perfect for any special occasion. Head on over to Instagram at SealTheDeal_wax stamps to check them out. Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but promotes and donates to mental health research. Head on over to their website, use code IESR to get 50% off of their gym wear today. And of course, if you have not done so already, please follow us on all social media platforms on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, all at IE Sports Radio. You can also check out the website, IESportsRadio.com. There you will find our show pages for this show and for all the other shows we have here. You will also find our merchandise, our Hall of Fame, Fan of the Month, blog, and so much more. If you are a fan of our show, please follow us on X. You can follow the show account at BP Bulletin _IESR. You can also follow Alden at AZTRL if you want to hear him. We'll say talk. I would normally say complain about Arizona sports. Alden, I'll let you, nod or disagree with that statement there. You can check out yours truly at IESR_DMV. I will be complaining about the Orioles and Nationals for the rest of the season. And you can check out Rick, normally our third person here, at Rick Gator under 555. He does not have much to complain about as he covers the Mets and Yankees, so he better not be complaining on X. We will be back next week to talk more baseball. We will be to the final stages of the College World Series, so we'll be curious to see which matchup goes there. Maybe we just jinxed both teams that would have normally made it. We will see. And, of course, tons of more baseball to talk about as well. Shout out to Taryn, who was in the chat room all night long, and thank you to everybody who listened live or later on in the week. Once again, this has been Alden K and Mike Patt for the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports.